And we've got Rick Bozich for you from WDRB.com to help you get through that. Rick, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Had a game here last night in town. Duke was in. More fans than usual at the KFC Yum Center. Duke never knew there were that many Duke fans in the area, but they came from all over the area. They had probably several thousand fans there. Yeah, not as many as Kentucky, but they had a lot of fans there. And
wow,
a lot of NBA scouts there to see the Duke players. And Duke got off to a good start. Louisville came back, cut it to 3 twice in the second half, but just not good enough to finish the deal, and Duke ended up winning by, I don't remember, 11 or 12, whatever it was.
Louisville seems to be playing better.
Yeah, they're playing better. They're just not getting wins. They're not good enough on defense. They gave up, I think, 83 last night. They're giving up 83 a game. In their ACC losses, they're giving up 83 a game. And last night was the first time in 8 games they didn't give up 10 threes, and Duke had 9. So you're not going to – they're playing winning offense. They're playing losing defense, and that's what the problem is.
Well, that it sounds like another team that's very familiar to us. Yeah, Indiana now number 95 on KenPom. Indiana State, by the way, is number 43.
Just to that guy's getting mentioned for some coaching jobs. I never heard of him until he got to Indiana State, but the Chicago papers have his name in there as a possible candidate for DePaul.
Man, that's how you climb the ladder. Winning cures all. Indiana, of course, coming off of a loss that we expected to happen on the road in Wisconsin, a place they haven't won since was it 1902? I think now, not quite that far back, but
Teddy Roosevelt was
yeah. Well, now they go to another place that's not going to be any easier on this weekend as they travel to take on an Illinois team that was already playing well, even without Terrence Shannon Jr. And now they get him back, which that can only bode well for them and make that a better team again. And 2 teams that I think are going to actually challenge Purdue. For Purdue is not going to walk away with this Big Ten title, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
And I'm not sure that they even win it. I'm not sure that they can't win it, but not winning this title would not only not surprise me. You look back at last year, theoretically, Indiana probably should have won it because of the games that they lost. When you lose a 20-point plus lead at Iowa and a 20-point plus lead at Wisconsin or whatever was that last year, I think. Yeah. Wow. You're like, and you lose the Big Ten by a game. Whew, that really hurts. But this year, those teams, Illinois and Wisconsin, they're going to give Purdue all they want. And Purdue has to get through the likes of Northwestern again and Nebraska, I think. So we've seen what can happen and that they go down. And Kentucky loses last night. The teams are going to lose. It's college basketball. It's what makes it fun. But Indiana, on the other hand, their losses are piling up. And not only that, if you are a KenPom follower, before the Wisconsin game, he had a pick to lose 12 out of the remaining 13 games. And even if you're an optimist, I say, all right, they win 3 out of those games. That still puts you at 500 at best.
I don't know where to begin in terms of over the entire Big Ten. I agree with you. I think Illinois and Wisconsin are going to make Purdue sweat to the wire, especially Illinois with Shannon back as good as he's been. Was it last night they blew out Michigan and put Juwan Howard was the coach last night, people were speculating on his future. Wisconsin is sort of a surprise team. You got to give Greg Gard credit. I mean, people have written him off several times. He's quietly, I don't think I can name the only player on their team that I can name. Well, before the guy Klismak that got into it with CJ Gunn would be a Ciegian, and he started last year, and I think they decided he wasn't good enough. They moved him to a bench role. They went out and got a guy from St. John's and some other players, and he sort of changed what they're doing and what they're about, and they're successful. So a tip to Greg Gard. I mean, they how many points they scored against I. They used to win games scoring in the 60s, and they put how many up on Indiana? 91. That's
91 points.
Yeah, that's terrible.
That's usually more points they score in 2 games combined.
Yeah, I mean, in Indiana, 91 to Wisconsin, 87 to Purdue, 86 to Nebraska, 104 to Auburn. I mean, the thing that's alarming about Indiana is in the games that they've lost, I mean, they gotten blown out in a number of them, and especially against. You could argue that they've lost to 3 number 1 seeds. Most people don't have Auburn as a number 1 seed, but they could be. They're leading the SEC. UConn, Purdue, and Auburn, and Indiana wasn't in their class. When it happens once, it can happen. When it happens twice, you raise your eyes. When it happens 3 times, you can't deny it. So they got work to do to get better, and they probably aren't going to be able to get better until next season because they don't have the. We've talked about this really all year. The roster management has not been good, where they don't have a good 5 to fit together and play the modern game of basketball. They don't have it.
No, and I've heard Woody talk about correctly that they are on paper a young team, but at the same time, I want to say, well, whose job was it to not make you a young team? Whose job was it to go into the portal and not leave an open scholarship, but to get a veteran guard or whatever it is you need, yours. So you can't complain about something that was your responsibility that you didn't do, if that's what you feel the problem is to the team, and it is part of the problem. They need, not only do they need veteran leader, they need leadership, because they're not getting that from the places they expected it to. That has gone haphazard. Xavier is, he's done what he's done. So you can't get leadership from that. And now you're relying on people like Malik Renew, who's a second-year player who has done a hell of a job. I've watched him all season long try to become this team's leader, whether it's vocally or on the court. And he's done that a lot at times.
Yeah. And, I think most coaches would tell you that you want a guard to be a leader because they're the ones that control the offense, that get the offense started. They're the first point of attack on defense. That's what you want. And, Xavier's not a leader. And Galloway, I think, tries, but for whatever reason it isn't working. But leadership works a lot better when you make shots, when you defend, when you do some of the things you need to do, and they're just not doing. And they have too many breakdowns in very basic areas of rebounding, turnovers, not failure of attention to detail on defense, over rotating, leaving 3-point shooters open. We've seen it from the very beginning of the year. It's not something that's just cropped up in the Big Ten. I remember being at the first 2 games of the year. I came to the Florida Gulf Coast and Army games, and I was alarmed that they had so much trouble putting those 2 teams away. And neither one of them has turned out to be very good teams. That was, you can say, well, it's early, they're breaking in some new guys, but if you're a good team, you put those kinds of teams away. You don't give up the kind of easy shots they were giving up in those games. And, it needed to be fixed quickly and taken seriously back then. And I'm not sure that it was. And now it's too late. Once you're in the Big Ten play, you're playing good teams that are focused and are paying attention to detail every game. And if you're not ready to go, they're going to exploit you and do it in a hurry.
Absolutely. And Philip pointing out that Illinois destroyed Northwestern at home by 30 without Shannon. That gives them an opportunity to become a better team without him. And then when you add a great player back, as long as it's not a disruptive thing, that just makes them all the more stronger. And they're going to end up being probably, obviously they're one of the best teams in the Big Ten, but they're going to be a team that it could be one you don't want to see in the NCAA.
Illinois?
I was thinking that. Yes.
Yeah, they got a lot of the pieces that you need. They've got a lot of pieces that you need to be successful. They got a lot of perimeter guys. They've got a lot of quickness. They've got tenacity. We've seen Brad Underwood's teams play. They're pretty tenacious on defense. They try and make you uncomfortable. They get into you out on the perimeter and make it hard for you to try and start your offense. And that's what you don't see from Indiana. I mean, you see a lot of times where when teams come in, they decide how the game's going to be played instead of Indiana dictating to the other team how the game's going to be played. And, that game tonight, though, is at Northwestern. Northwestern plays a lot better at home. Ken Palm's only got Illinois favored to win that game by 4, so I don't think it'll be another 30-point blowout.
No, either me, but I that should be a hell of a game to watch.
Right.
And a fun one in this league, because that's going to be one that determines who wins the league title or not. This is one they probably, Illinois, if they have a shot to win the title, they have to win this game, which
Sure.
that's a tough chore.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to look at the rest of Illinois' schedule. They play Purdue the next to the last game of the year. So they got Purdue. 2 of their last 3 games are against Wisconsin and Purdue. Looks like they only play Wisconsin once. So it's going to be a Wisconsin-Illinois-Purdue race for sure. And I don't know, Nebraska might be the 4th best team. They're sure hinting that they could be.
And they're working on that. And as far as Ohio State, I think that the Nebraska is the better of the two. So we'll see how that goes. But Indiana now has to go on the road to battle Illinois, and they've got to find something. I don't expect them to win. No one probably does, but they have to be competitive at the very least. They have to be competitive and in this game, because they kind of haven't been in a lot of these situations.
Yeah, I don't know what the way is. Make shots, have guys make shots that they don't normally make. Somehow play a little bit better defense. The thing that their defensive efficiency really is not good. I'm looking in conference only games. Indiana is they're 6th in the league in defense. They're 12th in offense. So offense is the bigger issue. Looking at Indiana in terms of defensive efficiency. So they rank 2. They're next 3rd to the last in the league in turnovers in conference play. So they're turning it over too much. They don't get many steals, and as we all know, the percentage of field goal attempts that they make that are 3-pointers is not good enough. They're 13th in the league in terms of where they get their points from the 3-point line. They're among Big Ten teams. They rank 13th in percentage of points they get from the 3-point line. That's not – when you got Trace Jackson Davis, you can live that way. When you got the group they have now, you can't.
Yeah, and the other night at Woody's radio show, he talked about the situation with C.J. Gunn picking up the flagrant, which admittedly, if back in the day, A, that doesn't even get seen, and B, there's nothing done about that. That wasn't as malicious as it's been made out to be. It was just stupid is what it is. I mean, it's a stupid foul. Yes, he was baited into it, but you're baited into stuff all the time. If you ever watch football, who gets a flag if there's a fight? The second guy, the guy who responds. So you have to be smarter than that, especially in knowing where you are right in front of the opposition's bench. I think I don't know if it's, and I see the word thug turned around, and thug, that's horse crap. It's not that at all. It's just not smart, not doing things intelligently. And I think that has shown itself more than anything with this team, is they make more mental mistakes and don't do the things they need to do from a mental standpoint. That to me is one of their biggest problems, along with not hitting shots.
I think it's frustration too. I think they thought they were going to be better than this. I think they thought they'd be more successful. A lot of guys thought they'd be playing better than they're playing. and you get frustrated, and you can't allow yourself to be your behavior to be dictated by the circumstances. I know that's hard to do when you're in an opposing arena and people are yelling you and taunting you. And the other kid, I think, was wiping his head on CJ Gunn's jersey or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was he got baited into what happened, and I've never seen any suggestion that CJ Gunn was any type of dirty player. Anytime I've ever talked to him, he comes across as a really good kid. But what you have to remember, and it's been said by many others, is in today's world of college basketball, there's 8 or 10 cameras in the building, and they're all tuned into that screen that the refs go look at, and you're not going to get away with anything. And you shouldn't be able to. So you just have to understand that there's no like covering up the camera and say, I'm going to do this. I mean, it doesn't work that way anymore. And they'll go back and the coach will say, hey, I think my guy got this. And they'll go back and check it out during a timeout. And if you did it, you'll get penalized for it. And you'd think by now, is it 7 flagrant ones they've had or flagrant fouls overall? Somebody tweeted that stat out and caused the big hubbub the other day that Indiana leads the country in flagrant fouls, which isn't a stat you want to see. But once the word gets out, officials talk that, hey, look out for this guy. I think Xavier is definitely a guy who's earned that kind of reputation among officials because he's exaggerating when he gets knocked down. He's talking to guys, he's complaining, and it's like that usually is not the right path. Just play the game and let the refs call the game. You play, the refs call the game, and see where it goes.
Well, when you're doing that, you've stopped relying on your own ability to force the tempo, to force the issue, to force whatever, and now you're relying on acting, and that's when you know that you've given up. You're not competing. Now you're
concentrating on what you're supposed to concentrate on, right? You're thinking about something that's not what's part of the game plan. It's like, and it becomes almost like retribution or spite. Like, I'm going to show you, or I'm going to show this guy. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. Just play the game.